Happy New Year and welcome back to the Big Lad Podcast. It's been a little while since I've done one. I did plan on getting some of these done between Christmas and New Year, so this one is coming a little bit later than planned, mainly because I got that dreaded cough that everyone seemed to get over the Christmas period. It's pretty much gone now, so I'm hopping back on the podcasts. Luckily, I've got a load planned in my notes, so even though I wasn't doing them, I was planning them all out. And they are ready to be recorded. So they will be coming over the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to be a lot more consistent with the podcast in 2025. So stay tuned. If you aren't following across any of the socials already, do so. It will help me out massively. I've got Instagram, TikTok. It's on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, all under the Big Lad Podcast. So any help would be great. If you listen to any of them, again, let me know. It really helps me out. So this one is a bit of a roundup from 2024. We've got 24 lessons from 2024, and we're just going to basically reel them off, have a little chat about them, and hopefully some of them resonate with you. So number one, starting us off, is celebrate the small things. Now, this is something that I've struggled with. I mentioned on previous podcasts that I tend to struggle just celebrating my achievements, no matter how big or small they are. I tend to struggle just celebrating them in general. So it's something that I'm trying to get better at, something that I'm trying to grow with, mainly being, so last year I managed to secure 2 essential promotions, new jobs, and I passed my SEMA qualification. So as a result of that, I had been given a expensive bottle of champagne to celebrate my SEMA passing, which is Chartered Institute of Management Accountant. So I'm now a fully qualified Chartered Management Accountant. It's actually been just over a year since I got that news. So I've had this bottle of champagne. It was literally sat on my work desk right next to me for almost a year, to be honest. So then when I got my new job towards the end of November, I decided to celebrate with that bottle of champagne. And I mean, it was expensive, so I was waiting almost to do something cool enough to warrant opening that bottle of champagne. We are talking a bottle of Dom Perignon, which is, I think, roughly £250. So I felt like I needed to do something really cool, and like I'd passed my SEMA, like Chartered Management qualification, which is equivalent to a master's degree. So it's not something that's just easy to go and get. It took me long enough to get it as well. So I should have probably celebrated then. So when I got my new job, 2 promotions in a year and my SEMA, I decided to celebrate and open that bottle of champagne. This isn't me trying to like flex that I had an expensive bottle of champagne. It was bought for me. So yeah, that is something that I'm trying to do in 2025. No matter how big or small the achievement, it needs celebrating. Life is too short to just go through not enjoying yourself. So when you do things that are worth celebrating, I think it is important to do so. Then moving on to number 2. This is actually like a quote from a Chris Williamson talk that I went to. I don't know if it's a quote directly from him or he's got it from somewhere else and just shared it in a podcast. But it is, I've already achieved goals that I said would make me happy. So I also struggle with, once I have achieved something, it's on to the next one, instead of enjoying the things that I've said that would make me happy once I've reached them. And I think that's true in a lot of people. Like, we get caught up a lot of the time in social media, especially, where people are sort of over inflating themselves on social media. I feel like a lot of people look at these people that are doing these hyper successful things, and then that plays into their lives where they may just be working a standard 9 to 5 and then see their goals as not as important as other people's on social media. So yeah, we have already achieved goals that said would make us happy. So why are we not enjoying ourselves in that moment once we achieve those goals? Then number 3, going alone is better than not going at all. Now, this is something that I found out later on in the year. So there's often been events and things like that that I've not been to because I've not had someone to go with. So then when I found that I could get Chris Stapleton tickets to go in Manchester at very last minute, actually, because it had sold out, and then a few tickets came available like really last minute. I asked around a few people, no one fancied it, and thought, you know what, I'm just going to go on my own. Like, there was people that had never heard of him or weren't willing to pay the price of the ticket. Now for me, really wanted to go, didn't know when the next time I might have the opportunity. So I decided to go alone. This was the first gig that I'd ever been on my own, and I wouldn't say I was like worried about going, to be quite honest, because I am a fairly confident person, but in terms of other people and their perception of me going to a gig on my own, they were like, what, as if you do that? Like, I can't believe you go to a gig on your own. And I went there, had a great time, and honestly, it was probably one of the best gigs that I've ever been to. And he was absolutely incredible. And then that has rolled on to a few other things. So I ended up going to Chris Williamson in London on my own. So I drove there and back in the same day to go and see his live show. I think that was in November, if I remember rightly. Again, same thing. People had either not heard of him or weren't willing to go down to London and back to go and see him. So again, I went alone. And then also, I was out Christmas shopping just before Christmas. I decided that I was going to go take myself for a little festive pint and a sausage roll in St. Peter's Tavern in Liverpool. Somewhere I'd been on a day sesh with the lads, and I just thought I really want to go back. It was a nice little place. Done a bit of Christmas shopping and just fancy going for a pint. So that was another thing. My mates thought I was a bit weird. They were saying, I couldn't do that myself. Like going, sitting down in a pub and just having a pint. Why not? Like, I feel like people are more worried about what other people are thinking about them than the actual thought of going themselves. And once people get over the fact that people aren't that bothered, like, I didn't feel like I was in a strange place sitting in a pub on my own, having a pint and just having a little scroll through my phone, going through, the latest things that were going on, having a little scroll through Instagram and just sitting there and just watching the day go by a little bit. Like, it was absolutely fine. I feel like it needs to be normalized a lot more because you're not always going to have someone to go and do something with. Now, there's obviously a difference, like sitting at the end of a bar, being like depressed or whatever at the end of a bar, having a pint. Like, that's the standard that I think sort of view people get when people say, I'm going to the pub on my own. But this was just me sat in a pub, enjoying myself really, after doing a bit of shopping, having a little break. Yeah, going alone is better than not going at all. Then number 4. So kind of quite a few of these link in together in some way or other. So this one is, life is too short not to do the things that make you happy. We never know when our day's going to come. As blunt and depressing as that may sound, we don't know what life is going to throw at us. So you might as well enjoy it whilst you're here. Do the things that you want to do. Do the things that make you happy, because who knows, tomorrow you could get hit by a bus. And as blunt as that sounds, that could be it. And if you've not been out and done the things that make you happy and what you want to do because you're too scared about what other people may think, then, is it worth like hampering your happiness because you were too worried about what other people are thinking of you? So yeah, that is the short message of just go out and do what makes you happy. And if people judge you for it, then I think that says more about them than it does about you. Another very blunt one, very similar. Enjoy the present because tomorrow is never promised. I, not necessarily last year, over the last couple of years, have witnessed that in sort of family. Some people have passed away. One probably a lot earlier than should have, but that unfortunately is just life. Yeah, enjoy the present because tomorrow is never promised. These are sounding very depressing, like I say, blunt, but it's absolutely true. You never know what could be coming around the corner. Hopefully, for those that are listening and anyone else out there, I hope nothing as bad as that happens where, life could be cut a little bit too short, but it is all about just enjoying the moment that you're in and not taking it for granted. Number 6, if you're not appreciating an environment, then take yourself away from the situation and go elsewhere. Now, this is something I personally felt in my current job with my management. I'm not going to go into much into the details, but basically just wasn't feeling appreciated for the work I was doing and the extra work that I was doing outside of my role. So yeah, I was going to be looking into getting a new job in like the new year now, but something came up earlier and I got approached to apply for a job and then subsequently got it. So it's a nice step up for me, different business, same company, different business unit. It's a very big company that I work for. So there is plenty of opportunities to go elsewhere, but this could go into so many different parts of life. So it could be work, it could be relationships, it could be friendships. There could be so many things that you could put this into. So yeah, if you're not appreciated in the environment you're in, sometimes it's just better to take yourself away from the situation and go elsewhere. And that could also link into the ones that I've previously said about life being too short not to be happy. So you may be in a job or a relationship where you're just not happy or appreciated in that environment. And for your sake, your happiness, life is too short to stay in that position. Potentially toxic environment that could be playing into your mental health. So yeah, sometimes it is good to just evaluate where you're at. Could you be in a better position elsewhere? I know they say the grass isn't always greener, but you never know. Sometimes it is. Going back to celebrating the small things, like I mentioned about the champagne, expensive champagne isn't all that much better than average price bottle. So this bottle of Dom Perignon, I don't think tasted all that much better than like a bottle of Moet. Like, I don't drink champagne that often. It's usually like Christmas or New Year. But like a bottle of Moet tastes very similar to a bottle of Dom Perignon. You're talking like 5-6 times, maybe even more, the price of that bottle. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people, this can link in again to things like clothes and cars. Like, you could have a Ferrari, you could have a little Ford Fiesta. They're still going to get you to the same place. Yeah, one may be faster, it may sound better, it may look better, it may be built with slightly better materials, but in terms of getting A to B, they're both going to do the same job. And I feel like that is, again, pushed by social media, that you've got to have the nicest, most expensive things to have some sort of level in society. I think it's a load of crap, to be honest. And I've got quite a few mates that fell into the traps of like expensive designer clothes. Like, some of them, every night out they'd go and buy like £100-200 t-shirt because they wanted a different photo for Instagram. I've never personally been into that. Each to their own sort of thing, but I've noticed they've said fairly recently, actually, they're not that bothered about the design stuff anymore. They will get nice clothes, but they're not bothered about having like £200 t-shirts, which, to be honest, I think is ridiculous anyway. But yeah, just because it's expensive does not mean it is any better. Number 8. So this is one that I've noticed again in work. Also, you can see it on social media. The sacrifices people make to be in super successful positions. I have basically worked at the same company for the last 10 years in different business units. Quite often I would go to different events around career development. I actually used to run some of them when I was younger. I used to be part of a sort of early career development group at work, and then I ended up heading it up when sort of like a couple of years ago, and we'd run a load of these career developments. You would get asked the same sort of questions, like, what is your 5-year plan? Where would you like to get to? What would you like to do when you're older? And I always would have the same answer. It would be, I don't know. I want to find the sort of ceiling of my abilities. I don't know where that is yet, but hopefully one day I will find it. Like, I didn't ever say, I want to be CEO, I want to be finance director, I want to be this, that, or the other. It would always just be a sort of, I don't know where my limit is, so who knows. But then the older I've got, the more sort of visibility I've got of that higher management and what the pressures of the things that they're doing and the impact it has on their personal lives. It has made me reevaluate that much more. Fair play if you want to go and do the high management roles. Fair play to you if that's your thing. But for me, it is about the work-life balance, because outside of work, obviously, I've got the things like the podcast that I enjoy doing, going to the gym, playing football, doing my online coaching. For me, if I go to those higher levels of management, yeah, may have those big 6-figure salaries, but you've got to then question the impact that it's going to have on your personal life, because at some point, I would like to be a dad. I would like to have kids, and I don't want to be the dad that is taking work calls in personal time, because then that is taken away from that side of things. So yeah, for me, it becomes a point where the extra salary isn't worth the impact that it has on your personal life and outside of work hours. So I'm not at my limit at the moment. I'm moving into a new job, so this is another thing. So my new job, I will be getting paid the same as the same job in the current business that I'm in. However, the size of the projects of the business I'm in at the moment are far bigger, which would mean way more responsibility. Like, one of my managers is a commercial project manager, the level above me, and I see the impact it has on him, the amount of stress, extra work and things like that, the hours that he's putting in. Whereas I can go and get paid the same money to work in a smaller business with smaller projects and less responsibility. So it's things like that, just evaluating. And I think a lot of people, as they go through the corporate world, they do sort of reevaluate themselves and what they want from not only the work, but also for personal life. Like I say, it becomes a point for me where the additional wage is not worth the extra work or responsibility. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, need to just reevaluate the situation, what they want from work and what they want from their personal lives, and what they need from a salary to get to a point where they are happy. Number 9. So this is a big one. I think I've spoke about it before. So this is the annoyance of being tired after a night out. So for me, I have this weird ability to be able to stay out really late. I do get tired, but I have this ability to just be able to push through it. I'm not sure where it's came from. It's probably from college, to be honest, because I used to row back in college. I used to train 9 times a week, so that would be every day and then twice on a Saturday and Sunday, like a double session. And also, obviously, I had college and trying to live like the normal life of a teenager. So quite often I would be on very minimal sleep. And I think I just got this ability to be able to almost survive on that low amount of sleep. And that's kind of carried on into my adult age, where going on a night out, where people would usually be like, oh, should we go on? I'm getting tired. Like, I'm not that tired. I've got a couple of other mates who are fairly similar, to be fair. But before anyone starts thinking, oh, he must be getting on drugs or whatever, I've never even touched a cigarette. I've not touched anything in my life other than alcohol. And also I have this ability to drink a fair amount and then not really get a hangover the day after. It's the tiredness that affects me massively. So I could get in 4, 5, 6 a.m. and then I would usually wake up at a fairly normal time. I wouldn't lie in. I would probably be awake by at latest 12, which you're talking could be 6 hours sleep at most, sometimes less. And then that just rolls over into the rest of the weekend and then the start of my next week. And from a point of wanting to do things like getting on podcast, doing productive things on a weekend, it really does affect that because I'm shattered. My brain won't be there in terms of being able to articulate myself properly on a podcast, think properly. I'd be yawning quite often. And then it's just other things in general as well. Like when you're absolutely shattered, that is the time where you're least going to want to do stuff. So it's something that I'm going to try and improve on. Instead of just going out for nights out for the sake of it because it's weekend, save it for occasions, events, birthdays, and also just start coming home earlier because there is no need to be out as late as I'm going out to. Another thing that doesn't help that is actually the time that I end up going out. Like there's been nights where I don't go out until like 10 o'clock-ish. So if you're having your first drink at that time, then you are more likely to just stay out in general. So yeah, it's something that I'm going to be working on during 2025 because I do want to be way more consistent with this podcast especially. Number 10, maintaining a house is a lot of work. So I moved out just over a year ago and it really does make me think how much work my mum put into keeping the house presentable and things like that. It is a hell of a lot of work, especially so when I first moved out, I thought, I'm going to do loads of content. I'm going to really get my YouTube channel going as well and really just get things moving. And it's not happened because I've just not had the time. I've been busy with work. I've been busy with exams before I passed my SEMA. There's been a few other things that I've had going on. Yeah, literally I could finish work, go to the gym, cook the dinner, eat, and then before you know it, it's 9 o'clock. So yeah, just maintaining a house is a lot of work. So anyone who's still living at home, just bear that in mind. It does take a hell of a lot of work just to keep a house running and somewhat presentable. Number 11. So this was a bit of a social media trend at one point. It seems to have gone away a little bit. I'm not too sure. I don't see much of it. But it was the whole red flag, green flag, and then it turned into beige flag. So my beige flag is that I think I can do anything. So in one sense, it is a good thing because nothing really holds me back. If something comes up, I feel like there's a way I can get around it, do something to progress. But it's also a sort of red flag because I can't always do everything and anything. And sometimes you do need help. So I think it's one of them just to know where my limits are. And I think this could be the same for quite a lot of people. I think a lot of, especially men, probably think we can just do anything and we can't. Sometimes we do need help, and it's knowing when to reach out and when to give it a go yourself. Like, for instance, at the moment, I've got a shed in the garden that I want to turn into a sauna. Because I watched a YouTube video of someone doing it, I now think I can do it because I look at it and go, oh, it's not that hard. You just put a bit of insulation in, put a moisture barrier down, put like a reflective sheet, put some wooden cladding over the top, and you're good to go. But there's obviously a skill to it, and I will need help. I've got a mate who's an electrician, who's quite handy as well, so I'll probably call on him for a bit of help. But yeah, we'll see. 2025, I will definitely be vlogging that as well, because there's no doubt something's going to go wrong, and I think it'll make for good viewing. So keep an eye out. And hopefully 2025 is the year of the shed sauna. We'll see. It's only because it actually doesn't get used. It's got some garden furniture in at the moment. That's about it. It could just be in the garden and be a useful shed. So contemplating the price for inaction. So there is a cost of not acting on something. So whether you've got a decision to make, you need to make a decision either way. There is a price for inaction. So say if that was, who knows, you see a girl or a guy on a night out at the end of a bar that you find attractive, you want to go and ask them out. You don't ask them out. You never know what could have been. Could have been boyfriend, girlfriend, ended up being married with 2 kids and a dog. But if you don't go and ask and find out, then you may never see them again. That is the first thing that came to my head, by the way. There was obviously plenty of things that could also go for. It could go for jobs, not applying for that job when you didn't think you were quite good enough, but who knows, you could have had an interview, really smashed it, and ended up with a great leap in your career. Contemplate the price of inaction. Sometimes we just need to do it. So yeah, that was number 12. Number 13, this again was from a Chris Williamson podcast, and the episode this was a really good one, so I would suggest going and watching it. I don't want to get the guy's name wrong. So the episode was Dry Creek Dwayne. So this guy is like a cowboy. The Life Lessons from a Modern Cowboy is the name of the episode. So it's Chris Williamson, podcast number 869. I would highly recommend you go and watch it. It was a really good one. So being the guy that I would buy for a beer for at the bar. So this was where Dwayne was basically talking about how he used to be and he didn't like the person he was and wanted to change to be the guy that would be nice enough that you would buy yourself a beer at a bar. And I think that doesn't obviously just go for fellas, it can go for girls as well. Be the person that a stranger would be willing to buy a drink for at a bar. I think that's just a really nice person to be, and it'll say a lot about you. I really liked it, resonated quite well. Not to say that I don't like myself, but I think in terms of just being a friendly person in public. Like, for instance, I've put a TikTok up last year that didn't go viral, but it got a lot of traction on. But it was basically that when I would go for a walk, I would always let on to people and say, like, hello or smile. And the amount of people that would just put their head down and carry on walking. Now, I don't know whether I looked maybe intimidating because I'm tall or wearing a black coat or something like that. Who knows? But for me, especially up north, find it quite surprising that people would just put their head down instead of just literally saying hello. But then a load of people in the comments were like, oh, you never know, they could have anxiety, da 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 da. I hate to believe that every single person that I walk past on this particular walk has anxiety and wouldn't just smile at someone. But it is what it is. That's what other people were thinking. So yeah, just be nice. That is the sort of message. Number 14 is my mindset around injuries and pain. So I've had my fair share of injuries over the years. I have been annoyed at times with them, but you've just got to accept that it is what it is, learn from them. It is a learning process at the end of the day, especially big injuries. So I've done my knee, I would say now 3 or 4 times over the years, and it's got easier each time to manage it and deal with it. Not saying that it's not got more annoying, because it definitely has, because once I get back into a rhythm or something, then something's gone wrong. Before that, I've had pulled hamstrings, things like that. I also did my foot before New Year, playing football. I went to clear a ball. The lads came in with the studs up. I've cleared the ball and then booted straight through her stud. Still bothers me to this day. I've been told it could be up to a year before that fully heals, which is really annoying, can't lie. But we just keep moving. And I feel like a lot of people get really down when they do get injured. Obviously, it's annoying. It's not ideal, but you've just got to accept you can't do anything. You're in this position now. Accept it. And it is what it is. So crack on, learn from it, and use it as a way to just mentally get stronger. Like I say, I've had my first year of major injuries, and I'm sure I'm probably not done with that either. It's life. Get older, things start to break, unfortunately. But yeah, if anyone is struggling around injuries or pain or anything like that, drop me a message. Always happy to have a chat. Number 15, wanting what I can't have. So this, again, falls into the injuries. So I found this really strange that when I did my knee, I would be going out for walks, because I could still go on walks, but I'd see people running. And for some reason, I would get jealous of people being able to run because I couldn't. But it made me laugh, because when I am fit, I still don't go running. I would prefer to go on a bike, which I can still do now. Nothing really had changed other than the fact that I physically couldn't run at the time. I actually ran for the first time it was the 30th of October. I did my knee. I'm going through rehab again at the moment. And I actually ran on the treadmill for the first time yesterday. Felt fine. So I'm going to start building up on that. But yeah, I just noticed it really made me laugh that I couldn't run at the time. And all I wanted to do was be able to run, because I keep seeing people running. And it was making me jealous that people could run, even though I don't run when I'm fit. Really strange. At number 16, it is what it is, and controlling the controllable. So sometimes, like injuries, out of our control, can't do anything about it. It does just happen sometimes. Controlling the controllable is what you should be aiming for. And what I mean by that is there are things out of our control that you can't do anything about. Sometimes they're external things, sometimes it's other people, who knows. But being able to just control what you can control is all you can do sometimes. So you've just got to accept it and say, it is what it is. We're going to crack on, and this is what we're going to do now. And yeah, I've noticed again over social media, people stressing, getting anxiety over things that they literally can't do anything about. Like, for instance, the gym's being busy in January. People are stressing out about the gym's being busy. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that. People do join the gym again in New Year, wanting to try and get fit, and the gyms do tend to be busier for a couple of months. It is what it is. Unfortunately, you've just got to crack on. Control what you can control, which would potentially be the time that you can go. Maybe it's quieter in the morning or later in the evening. That's all you can do. Yeah. Sometimes you've just got to say, it is what it is. Number 17. This was quite a shocking one. So this is the amount of people that don't know about investing or how to do it. So obviously I come from a finance background, an accounting background. I invest quite a lot myself in various things. So you could say pension, that is investing in a sense. Then I've got the S&P 500, which for me is going to hopefully be a method of me being able to retire early and get me to my pension. That is the aim. Whether that happens, who knows? Again, it is what it is. Can't control it. I invest in crypto, which is obviously very, very high risk, but could also be very, very high reward. We will see how that goes in the next couple of months. I'm hoping it comes in. But yeah, I spoke about it a couple of times because I had a question about investing on my story, and the amount of messages that I got on the back of it of people just saying, I just have a savings account. I don't really know how to invest. I don't know how to do it or anything about it. Which, yeah, you don't get taught about it at school. So unless you do your own sort of learning on research, or you're in a job that helps you sort of understand that stuff, then you're not really going to know anything other than a savings account. You may have heard of these things, but unless you understand what it is or how to do it, then yeah, you won't know. I think it is something that does need to get into schools. The basics of just investing and how to make the most out of your money. Because at the end of the day, we all work very hard for our money, no matter what job you're doing. So we need to make the most of it, especially with things like inflation and all the rest of it. And the amount of tax that we get in this country is a joke. So I do think there needs to be a bit more on how to invest cleverly, how to invest smart and make the most of your money, and just letting people know the risks of what they're getting into and what potentially could happen or can happen. So, I mean, I don't think I can necessarily give out financial advice because I'm not qualified to do so. I can tell you what I do, why I do it. But at the end of the day, you've got to be willing to lose what you put in some instances. Like with a savings account, you're not going to lose it unless your bank goes belly up. Yeah, in terms of investing in stocks, obviously can, but I would say S&P 500 for me is a very, not reliable, but fairly safe option. Yes, it will go up and down, but because I'm not looking to cash it in for, say, 30 years, then it will be most likely okay. If you look at it over the last 40 years, I think on average it's gone up by around 10 or 11%. So you would be fairly okay to assume that will continue. Crypto, different ball game. You could put £1,000 in it and it could go to zero overnight, or it could go to 100,000 if you're getting the right things. So yeah, it's one of them. You've got to do your own research at the moment. There's plenty of stuff out there on Instagram and YouTube, but again, you've got to be careful because there are a lot of scams, especially in the crypto world. So be careful if you are going to look into that stuff. But yeah, I would look into things like the S&P as a starting point. Do your research and see how you feel about it and assess your risk level. Number 18, I'm spreading myself too thinly and need to lock in on a few things rather than plenty, which is why sort of my personal YouTube has gone quiet. The clothing stuff has gone fairly quiet as well. And ahhing whether to bring that back, who knows? But at the moment, it's quiet. So I've got basically my job, my online coaching, which I may build up slightly. I've got room to do so. I do only like working with a small amount of clients, though, just because if things get busier for me at work, for instance, I can still maintain a good level of quality for my online coaching. So I'm not in that for the money. I just enjoy helping people. So if you would like a coach that works with a very small amount of people that can give you the time, drop me a DM and I can tell you what I offer and how I do my work. But yes, in terms of spreading myself too thinly in this year, so I'm really going to put the effort into the podcast. Still doing my content on the GW Fit page, but yeah, more content with the podcast and more consistency is what I'm going for. Number 19. So this one is stop being afraid to be confident. It's not shameful to think highly of yourself and to carry yourself as such. So I feel like a lot of people are just too afraid to be confident in the worry that people may judge them for doing so, especially people that come from towns with that small town mentality. I feel like I come from one myself. It's almost like you're born here, you stay here, and that's what we do around here. Whereas when people start getting successful, they start not necessarily getting hate for it, but I feel like a lot of people get judged for being successful in small towns. Either they've got lucky, they've got a leg up from parents, like dad's money, who knows. But I feel like a lot of people are afraid to be confident just for the sake of potentially people judging them for being confident in themselves. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people just need to be a lot more confident in themselves and crack on and stop worrying about just stop worrying what other people think of them. Number 20, never underestimate the power of a long walk. So I have been in just bad moods some days. Sometimes you wake up, you've had a crap night's sleep. Sometimes going for a walk, no headphones either, just no distractions. Put your phone in your pocket and just go for a walk. Be alone with your own thoughts. Start thinking things through, planning things out in your head, and just reviewing things. And sometimes that puts you in such a good mindset. Like I, on my walk, purposely go a certain route so that I have a fairly decent amount of time away from main roads and in kind of countryside through some fields, and literally just walk, be mindful of what's around you, hear the noise of the cars, hear the birds chirping, hear the rustling in the trees when the wind goes through. And it is a massive difference when you come back. So sometimes Yeah, if you're in a bad mood or you're feeling a bit anxious, a bit stressed out, just go for a walk. Especially if you can get out in nature, do it. Don't have any distractions, no music, no podcasts, just walk. 21. Joy deserves as much attention as struggle. So I feel like in life and on social media, people can put too much attention on the struggle and the negative side of life, where joy also deserves just as much attention. So again, be mindful of what sort of state you're in, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, and yeah, just be more in tune with your body and your mind and just give it as much attention as the negative side of things, because again, I've said it many times on this podcast alone, life's too short not to be happy. And if you're not giving the attention joy deserves and you're just focusing on the negatives all the time, then you're going to be quite often in a negative state of mind. 22. Stop waiting for the stars to align and just do it. The moment's never going to be perfect. We've just got to sometimes bite the bullet and crack on. Like originally with this podcast, I started in lockdown, and the reason I was doing that was because I actually had plans to go and meet up with people from Instagram to do workouts and do vlogs with people. Then lockdown came along, so I thought, how else can I get in contact with these people in a different way? And it was to start a podcast. And it's one of the most enjoyable things that I actually do. I've not done enough of them, to be quite honest. Been fairly inconsistent with them throughout the whole time of this podcast. But we are over 50 episodes deep now, which I believe most podcasts don't actually get past episode 20. So I'm doing okay considering the lack of consistency. But this year I'm aiming to essentially get to 100 episodes, which is, I think, well, it's just under a podcast a week from today, basically. So yeah, a lot of work to do, a lot of episodes to come. But yeah, it wasn't perfect. I actually started filming the podcast on my work's laptop with my work's headset. The camera quality was rubbish. The audio was rubbish. I then started investing in things, and you slowly build it up. Like, even still now, like, that's only an LED light behind me with a fake plant from IKEA. I've got a lamp this side to give me some light this way. I've got a ring camera there. Not a ring camera, a ring light facing this way. Got a half decent microphone. It's a Blue Yeti mic, which again, it's not weird or wonderful. It's like, I think it was about £100. Some of the mics that some people use are literally like £300-400. And then I've got my Sony camera, which I had for vlogging already anyway. And then I use my Mac for the podcast software that I use, which is Riverside, which is literally like £10-15 a month. And this just helps me clip up because it was taking me too long to do it myself. Even still, I've not got a weird or wonderful setup. I haven't got like a dedicated podcast room. This is my work desk in the spare bedroom of the house. So yeah, there's obviously levels that it can get to, providing you lot subscribe and like these videos and give me reviews, because that all helps to grow and help me reach other people. So I kind of relying on other people to help me elevate this podcast. Obviously, it's going to come from me in terms of consistency, which is going to come. So if you've not already, subscribe, like, review. It really does help me, and I do appreciate it. But yeah, nothing's ever going to be perfect. Sometimes you've just got to start and learn on the job. So if there is something that you're and ahhing about, worrying how you're going to get it started, just go for it, learn. Because at the moment, you are getting nowhere and making no progress. If you're waiting for everything to be perfect, it may never come and you may never get anywhere. So just start it, and who knows? You never know where it might lead you. Number 23. Now, this is a very, very important one. Do not fall in love with the Aldi middle aisle, because you'll just get disappointed. The amount of times that I've found something down that middle aisle that I really like, really enjoy, and then I go in there next time and it's just not there. It is heartbreaking in a way. It's devastating. So enjoy it whilst it's there, but don't expect it to be there the next time you go shopping. Like, there was, what was it now? It was like a honey sriracha sauce that I found in there, which was absolutely unreal, with this Kewpie mayo. It's like, I think it's like Japanese mayo or something. Them together was unbelievable. Went into Aldi the next time, I have not found it ever since, and I think this is like 6 months ago. So yeah, very important on that. Do not fall in love with the Aldi middle aisle. 24, the very last one. This again is a quote from a Chris Williamson podcast. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. So quite often we avoid the hard things or the things that we don't want to do. And quite often these are the things that are going to elevate us to a next level, whether that be in work, business, personal life, for instance, in the gym or in running. If you are looking to get fitter, healthier, stronger, maybe you need to do a bit of HIIT work for, say, a high rock, because that is essentially just an hour of HIIT. Maybe you're avoiding those harder efforts on the road or on the treadmill where you may need to go hard for, say, 2 minutes and then have a 1 minute rest. And you need to completely do that, say, 10 times. But you don't want to do it because it's a bit difficult. But that's what's going to get you better at your high rocks. But instead, you're going to go for a light 20, 30-minute run because you can do it and you enjoy it and it doesn't hurt you too much. You're not going to be panting. You're not going to be absolutely shattered, fighting for breath at the end of it. But you know for a fact that if you were to do those HIIT sessions, then your high rocks time may be even better. And I'm only saying about high rocks because I go to a high rocks gym and I can't avoid it. But you get what I mean. Sometimes the stuff that we find hard is what we actually need to do most to get better at doing the overall thing. So I'll just repeat that one again. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And that wraps me up. That is all 24 points. I hope that has been useful in some way or other. I hope it has touched a point for you in some way. There's 24 of them, so hopefully one of them resonated a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed it. And like I say, we are going to be so much more consistent with this podcast because I really do want to elevate it, speak to more people, speak to maybe a higher caliber of guest. Who knows where it may lead me, but I can't do that without your help. If you are on YouTube, please drop me a like. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please drop it a review. If you're not already, subscribe. Subscribe to all 3 platforms, who knows, then you'll never miss an episode. But any reviews really do make a massive difference. Sharing to your Instagram story helps. It's going to potentially reach new people. So I really do appreciate if you got this far. Yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening.